Welcome back to MuseThemes.com, everybody. This is Ashton Bingham, here to give you a quick rundown of our animated intro widget from Muse. What we have here on our live demo is a version of our Paragon theme, but to see the widget in action, we actually need to give the page a refresh. There we go. And as the page loads, we get this awesome little entrance animation of our title, our subtitle, as well as our button, all kind of flying in different subtle but dynamic ways. Entrance animations are becoming very popular on the web nowadays, and this widget provides a very simple and quick way to add a title, a subtitle, and a button to your site, complete with fully customizable entrance animations. The widget also includes an entire hero area and is where this full-width hero image is coming from also. The flexible placement capabilities of the widget have allowed us to layer the widget behind our logo and navigation, so it blends every effect into the page very cohesively. So let's switch over to Muse and walk through the setup. What I have here is the unchanged Paragon theme homepage with the original layout. We've got a hero image filling a full-width rectangle, 2 header text boxes, and a Learn More button placed at the center. The idea here is for us to replicate this exact layout on a new page, but using the animated intro widget instead. So I'm going to switch out to our plan view, and we'll right-click on our homepage and we'll duplicate it. And then we'll simply click into our new page. Perfect. Now, if you're trying to replicate a pre-existing page with this widget, you'll want to take note of certain parameters before you remove these assets, such as the height of our hero image, your font families and size, as well as your button styling. And you can of course tweak these things as needed inside the widget settings panel. For now, let's go ahead and remove the elements we're no longer going to need, which is our group of header text boxes, our button, and our hero image. Perfect. Now let's jump into our library and we'll drag out the animated intro widget and we'll drop it on our page. There we go. Feel free to size this how you need. The size of the placeholder here is going to represent the space that the widget will take up on the page. For us to mimic the Paragon theme layout we just had, we need to make this full width first. We also want it placed right at the top of the page. And we want the height to match too, which in this case is 750 pixels, and we can type that up here in the height settings. Perfect. One last thing we want to do here is adjust the layering. So as of now, we just placed our widget over top of our pre-existing logo and navigation buttons. So make sure to layer this widget exactly where you want it visible on your page, and you can do that in your layer settings, or in this case, I'm just going to right-click on it, go to Arrange, and click Send to Back. That way all my pre-existing elements will show up over top of our hero image. Now let's jump into the settings panel. The settings are broken down into a few sections, but we can start with the preliminary settings here on the top to make it match. Our title text is Building Confidence. Our subtitle text is Let Our Solid Reputation Be Your Guarantee. Great. And button text, Learn More. We also have our widget height setting here, so we'll just go ahead and type 750 to match the canvas. Now there are lots more settings to go through, which I will in a moment, but I want to give this a quick browser preview as it stands now so we can see the effect functioning already. I'll leave all other settings as default, but before I preview, I want to load in our background image. So let's click into General Styling. We'll click Enable Background Image, and then we'll click the Add File button to add our image. Now I've already got our hero image sitting in my folder here, so I'll just go ahead and make that selection. And there we go. So before I do anything else, let's go ahead and give this a preview. Okay, our hero image is displayed and we have our title, subtitle, and button animated in. Now we do of course need to do some styling to our titles and button if we want it to match, and perhaps slow down the animation a bit as well. And we can do all of that from the settings panel, so let's jump back into Muse and do some more detailed customization. Back up here to our preliminary settings, we have Effect Type, which is defaulting to Bounce, but you can see we also have Cut and Scale available as well. Let's switch it up and go with Cut for the next preview. Next here we have 2 padding settings for subtitle top margin and bottom margin. Now these 2 margin settings were the simplest way to provide complete control over the spacing between the title, the subtitle, and the button. So since the subtitle is in the middle of the 3, our subtitle top margin controls the spacing above it, and the bottom margin controls the spacing below it. And EM is the text unit of measurement used here since it's the most applicable and proper in this case instead of using pixels or something else. So to make our spacing match the Paragon theme, we need to narrow the spacing down a little bit. So for top margin, I'm going to drop this to 0.3. And this will bring the title and subtitle closer together. And I'm going to drop the bottom margin just a bit to 1.7, which will bring the subtitle and button slightly closer together. Okay, so that covers our top section. Let's jump into general styling once again so we can explore the additional options. We've already got our background image enabled and loaded in, which is great. Next up is background color. Now we can leave this alone for now since we have a background image loaded in, but if you decide not to enable your background image, you'll have the space filled with a color instead, which you can determine here. Furthermore, if you don't want any image or color, you can set the color to be a transparent background as well. Next two options are our text color. So in this case, we want both the title and subtitle to be white. There we go. And then for fonts, let's make it Open Sans across the board. And the last four options here are for our font size for both lines as well as our font weight for both lines. Now, as I mentioned before, if you're designing this widget based on a pre-existing layout, this is why it's a good idea to take note of the styling choices before you remove the elements. To make mine match, I need to make my title font 60 and my subtitle font 30. And then we have font weight, and my title needs to be 700, and I can leave my subtitle at 300. Now, we usually don't include font weight parameters in the widget options, but we did in this case since we're specifically working with titles. And of course, if you're not basing this off of any specific pre-existing layout, feel free to experiment until it's right where you want it to be. Now let's jump down to button styling. Similar settings here, we'll do Open Sans for our font. You have the option for a URL here as well, so feel free to add a link to another page on your site or even an external link if you choose. I need my font color to be white, but I can leave the red background color alone, and the button radius can stay at 3 as well. One last section, let's take a peek down here in animation settings. Now there's a handful of options here, but they're specific to the type of animation you've selected up top. So we've selected cut in this case, so we'd only be using these middle 4 parameters in this case. But feel free to customize any of the 3 animations you selected in this section. Most of them are duration and delay parameters measured in seconds. So if you find that your animation is happening too fast, or more so if the animation is occurring too early, like maybe before your total page load, simply increase the delay to delay the animation, and you can increase the duration to slow down the animation itself. For the sake of demo, let's slow down the duration of our animation just a bit and increase this to 1.2. Okay, so let's close out of here and give this one final preview. Beautiful. We've got everything back in order here for our Paragon theme, utilizing our animated intro widget for a much more engaging and dynamic entrance to our homepage here. So that's our animated intro widget. Thanks again for checking this one out. Have fun experimenting, and as always, if you run into any difficulties, don't hesitate to drop us a note in support. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.